Hello, and welcome to Unity of Fredericksburg. My name is Andrea, and I am pleased to welcome all of you to the Unity of Fredericksburg weekly online gathering. At Unity of Fredericksburg, we are advancing the movement of spiritual awakening and transformation through unity, a positive path for spiritual living. We thank those of you watching on YouTube, live or later, and invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you are able to attend live, we encourage you to join us in the Zoom community room for the full Sunday morning experience, including music, prayer, and connection. Our weekly newsletter includes the Sunday service link, and you can subscribe to receive that on our website at uofva.org. For everyone local to Central Virginia, Unity of Fredericksburg offers a variety of fun and enriching in-person gatherings every month. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter at uofva.org for all the details. Our message today comes from our minister, Reverend Cheryl Fair. And now, here's Reverend Cheryl.
Thank you, Andrea, and welcome everyone who is in the Zoom room with me right now, and all of you who are connecting with us through YouTube, or perhaps later on when our recording gets posted to social media. However it is that you are showing up and connecting with Unity of Fredericksburg, welcome and thank you for being part of the spiritual energy of Unity of Fredericksburg. Our broadcast date today is Sunday, May 24th, 2026. I'm going to start off today with a little bit of good news. So on May 18th, tennis legend Billie Jean King, at the age of 82, earned her Bachelor of Arts in History from California State University in Los Angeles, 65 years after first enrolling. Back in 1961, she stepped away from college to pursue tennis, and this year returned to finish what she started. A reminder that purpose has no expiration date. Billie Jean King was one of the greatest champions the sport has ever known. She won 39 Grand Slam titles and became a defining force not only in tennis, but in the fight for equality in sports and society. And so now, alongside all of her trophies and titles, she can proudly add college graduate. So I thought that was a worthy note for the beginning of our time together today. And what a great example of being intentional, which is the focus that we are working with this May. And in particular, we are exploring spiritual principles and practices that can help us to make healthy choices for taking action in our human lives. So our Sunday topics in hooking up with being intentional are based on areas of interest and concern that were revealed in our congregational annual discernment back at the end of 2025. So we started the month talking about spiritual earth care. And today, our topic is spiritual economics. And this comes from a desire in our congregation to help vulnerable people in our communities meet basic needs such as housing and nutrition. Now, it was interesting. I was having a little conversation with someone, and they referred to the title that I chose in spiritual economics, saying, "Oh, yeah, that one's about finances." It's like, oh, so let me just start off by saying, no, spiritual economics is not about finances. So, what is spiritual economics? Let's start with that, shall we? So, students of Unity may be familiar with a book by Eric Butterworth called Spiritual Economics. So, we are absolutely hooking up with this book today, which is a book that has been used in Unity prosperity classes for quite a long time. And so beyond that, so let's, with help from my co-pilot here on my computer, what is spiritual economics? So spiritual economics is the practice of circulating good in ways that honor the inherent worth of all beings and reflect the abundance of the universe. And of course, when we're talking about circulating good, we are talking about resources, we're talking about talents, we're talking about creativity, compassion. And by golly, we could talk about this for a long time. But of course, it's always my challenge every week to take the expanse of whatever topic I've chosen and bring it down to a reasonable time together so that our focus today is when we look around in our human lives, in our community, when we see situations that we want to help with, the first powerful step that we can take is to set our intentions based on elements of spiritual economics rather than the economic understanding that's out there in the commonly held beliefs. So today we're going to look at three aspects of spiritual economics because I think three is a good number for remembering and applying in our daily lives. So first, spiritual economics is based on a fundamental belief in abundance rather than scarcity. Now, traditional economics out there in the human world is absolutely based on a belief in scarcity. So when I went online and looked for a definition of economics in the mainstream world, here's what it said. Economics is a social science that studies how individuals, businesses, governments, and societies allocate limited resources to satisfy unlimited wants and needs. So, wow, there it is. This essential belief in there's not enough and there's an endless, pile of needs for the not, and so this is this is a belief, this scarcity belief that is absolutely woven through all of humanity. And let's be honest, each and every one of us is participating in this belief at certain times in our lives, looking at situations out in the world. We can all confess to being in that moment of there's not enough. Not enough time, not enough love, not enough money, not enough space. So this is something that we're all a part of. Spiritual economics is based on a belief in infinite source. That supply originates in consciousness, in divine ideas, not in material limits. So this belief in absolute abundance shows up pretty much across every spiritual belief system and religion. So it's not as if humanity is not there saying, wait a minute, there is abundance in God, while our human brains are going, no, I need 10 and I only have 5. This teaching of abundance is fully present for us to check into, connect with anytime, all the time. So for those who come from a Christian background and the founders of Unity, Myrtle and Charles Fillmore, they identified as metaphysical Christians. So they would definitely point to the ministry of Jesus for lessons around abundance. So one of the most well-known stories from the ministry of Jesus would have been the feeding of the 5,000. So I probably don't need to explain that situation, but basically Jesus is going around teaching. There's a big crowd that has formed. And at a certain point, Jesus's disciples come and go, so we need to send everybody off home to go and get some food. And Jesus says, no, 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 let everybody stay. You feed them. Then, of course, the disciples, they show up with their, well, we got a problem. There's not enough. We don't have enough. Look at all these people. There's like 5,000 people. How are we going to feed them? All we have is 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. And then what does Jesus do? And what's important for us, and where we can really hook into this, is we look at what are the first things that Jesus does. And across the Gospels, it documents, number one, Jesus looks to heaven. Looks to heaven, in other words, shifts his focus away from the appearance of lack and connects with his divine nature and the truth that he knows at that spiritual level. He does that first, and then he gives thanks. So, in this way, we don't even need to get into the rest of the story. And there have certainly been plenty of people over the years who've tried to get in with their human minds and figure out how exactly that could have been done with this, but this is meant to be a story that shows us how things operate in consciousness. So in this way, Jesus shows us how we are to approach those appearances of lack in our lives or in the world. Number one, look to heaven. Align your consciousness with the abundance of God. Lean into that belief. And then, number two, give thanks. When we take the time to be thankful for the gifts that are present and the gifts that we know are in the flow that our human senses can't see, then we're opening the door to perceiving more and more. So just imagine that moment in the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000. Imagine that moment right now. Jesus looks to heaven and gives thanks. Take a breath, my friends. Let us, using Jesus as our example, let's make a couple of affirmations that we can use when in our lives we are perceiving lack with our human senses. All right, here's the first one. You can repeat it after me. All right. I live in a universe of infinite substance. Say it with me. I live in a universe of infinite substance. And here's one more. God is my source, and I am grateful. Say it with me. God is my source, and I am grateful. All right. Now, I can hear some of you, your brains are clamoring, showing up with all the evidence of lack. Like, that's really nice, but look at this situation. So it might be something in your life that you're like, yeah, but here in reality, here's what's going on, or it's something that you are observing in the outer world: famine, homelessness, loneliness. I want to remind you also that Jesus taught, and this comes from the Gospel of John 7:24, do not judge by appearances, but judge with right judgment. So appearances are what we perceive with our human senses. And there's Jesus saying, don't use that as your judge, folks. Right judgment is living in this belief in infinite divine substance, absolute abundance. So I do want to say that we don't mean here on Sunday morning to deny the existence of lack in the outer world. We understand that in the material world, there are circumstances, there are opportunities. What we do mean to do here is that we want to set our intentions and root our consciousness in divine truth. We want to be practicing gratitude on a regular basis. And then, as we choose the action that is ours to take in the outer world, we're doing it from a foundation of belief in abundance. So, whatever it is that you are choosing to do in the world, to engage with issues that you see in your life or in the outer world, make sure you are prayed up before you take any action. Be sure to work with any of those thoughts that are bubbling around saying, not enough this, not enough that. Make sure to tend to those first. Have yourself look to heaven, give thanks so that any action that you take will be love in action in the outer world. So, in this book, Spiritual Economics, Eric Butterworth he talks a bit about Unity founder Charles Fillmore and what he had to say about this. I've got a little quote for you. Charles Fillmore believed and taught that when we establish ourselves in the consciousness of God, the whole universe moves to flow into us with its abundance of life and substance. And here's another quote from Charles Fillmore in a book called Christian Healing. When the mind of man is set on high, he never gives up or allows defeat to thwart his righteous ambitions. To one in spiritual understanding, there is no loss. The going and coming of material and intellectual things are but changes in the panorama of life. So, I encourage everyone to practice this. Abundance and gratitude, two pillars of our topic for today, spiritual economics. And these are both ways of preparing our consciousness and maintaining our consciousness as we go about living our human lives. The third pillar, the third thing we're going to focus on today, a part of spiritual economics, is circulation. And this is definitely kind of moving us into taking action in our lives. Now, spiritual teachings across faiths stress the importance of circulation. Right? So this would be the circulation of good and all of the ways in which good expresses in our human lives. Now, you might notice that kind of like when we talked about mainstream economics, much of human society perceives power as arising from accumulation of material wealth rather than circulation. So, and we know when we hoard piles of resources, what that does is cause stagnation in a system that's meant to be circulation. And you can think of this in very physical terms if you think of the human body. Anytime, rather than, the circulatory system or the digestive system, anytime something is, stagnant, you're going to have a problem because it's meant to be flowing, right? So only when there's a healthy flow of giving and receiving, of circulation, can human life be truly joyful and prosperous. So in spiritual economics, Eric Butterworth spends some time talking about Jesus showing us kind of the correct order, the divine order of circulation. So let me read to you about this. There's never a time when you can't find some way to start the giving flow which in turn will open the way to the receiving of good. Jesus clearly articulated the divine law. This is from Luke 6:38. Give, and it will be given to you. The divine flow requires but one thing of you, your consent to be a receiving channel. It's like the water faucet, which must be opened to the flow in order that the water may pour forth freely. Jesus was stressing the need to get into a giving consciousness in order to sustain the flow of good into your life. So that necessity of participating in circulation, right? Now, I want you to notice, and from that bit of scripture, when I talk about Jesus showing us the correct order, the divine order, it always says give. The give always comes first. So instead of kind of sitting and waiting and say, when I finally have enough of this and enough of that and enough of that, then I'll give. Like, no, no, no. That is not the correct order, dear ones. Jesus shows us the correct order is give. You do that first. So when the flow of good is healthy in society, in our lives, then every exchange is an opportunity to honor the dignity, to honor fairness, to uplift all people. Spiritual economics kind of asks in any particular situation, does this system help all beings thrive? So when you're looking at your life, when you're looking at the outer world and you want to be intentional about bringing about change or encouraging change in your life or in the outer world, as we've already talked about, center your mind and your heart in abundance. Lean into gratitude for the good that is flowing right now, even if your human senses don't pick it up, and find a way to participate in circulation, give. Now, we know there are so many different ways to give, and it's up to you in your human life to decide how and when and where. If it's a giving of time, it's a giving of regard, if it's a giving of money, if it's a giving of physical donations of some sort. As Butterworth frequently says, any situation that feels stuck, something's got to give. So you get things going by the giving, by opening up that channel of giving and receiving. So let's practice that for a moment. Take a breath. Let's practice a couple of affirmations. Here's the first one. I am a radiant center of divine circulation. Say it with me. I am a radiant center of divine circulation. Absolutely, I am. Here's the second one. Abundance unfolds through me, and I am grateful. Say it with me. Abundance unfolds through me, and I am grateful. Yes, indeed. Now, we've been talking about spiritual economics. I just want to link up our foundational unity practices so you can kind of see how they connect with this. So we have our fundamental belief in one presence and one power. So what this does, every time that we affirm that, we are affirming God or the universe or divine mind, whatever language you like to use, as the spiritual source, that all the expression that we see in our human lives begins with that one presence and one power. Then, one of the practices, we are always working with our consciousness, working with our thoughts and feelings, right? We are practicing what's called the law of mind action, which says thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. So, and that hooks up with spiritual economics, because economic conditions, whatever the state of the flow is, reflects collective consciousness. So back when we were talking about this idea of scarcity, we're all participating in that. So there's something when we say, what can I do? Number one, you can work in your own consciousness on supplanting that idea of scarcity with the idea of divine abundance. And third, we know that, and in our unity practices, like principle number 5 is basically putting our feet to our faith. We are co-creators in this material world through circulation. So we shape our shared prosperity through intention and action. And it is for each one of us to decide how we're going to do that. Now, it's not our job on Sunday morning to tell us how to manage our outer lives, but I try not to say, but there I am doing it. And I want to give you an example from Unity of Fredericksburg that participates in this love in action through long-standing volunteer opportunity, preparing and serving meals at the Thurman Brisbane Center. This has been going on for, I don't know, 20 years as far as I know, and continues going on now. So if you are local to Fredericksburg and you're saying to myself, what can I do? Well, there is an ongoing opportunity, and there are many other opportunities. So I just want to say, oh, there's one that Unity of Fredericksburg does. For those of you who are not local to Fredericksburg, you might be looking for ways to connect and move into that phase of action in the world. There is a ministry called Unity Social Justice. And when we're in the Zoom room later, I'll enter a link for you into the chat thread. But basically, it's unitysocialjustice.org. So another way that you can connect and see, how can I move into that action? How can I participate in the sacred circulation of resources? So as we come around to a close here today, I kind of want to step back to something we talked about at the beginning of the month, because we're working on being intentional. So I just want to remind you the kind of the steps for being intentional. Number 1, identify what you truly want to embody or create. So, what is your heart calling to you about? What aspect of spirit is wanting to get your attention to help make the the collective consciousness and the world a better place? So, identify that. Stated clearly and positively in spiritual terms. So you can use any of the affirmations that we've been using today, and our meditation time will include plenty more that you can go back to the recording and write them down later so you can practice them. And connect your spiritual practice to your outer behavior. How is it that you will live and be the truth that you want to see in the world? How is it you're going to do that? And then lastly, just keep revisiting that intention regularly and consistently. Have your spiritual practice. Be in a state of gratitude. Ask yourself, how can I participate in circulation? And this, my friends, is spiritual economics. So we're going to now move into our time of meditation. So I invite you to take a couple of deep breaths and get a little bit more comfortable in your seat. Just feel the body in the seat. Feel the breath moving in and out of the body. I align with the infinite flow of divine substance. Take a breath. Every grateful thought I hold expands the field of possibility. Take a breath. I participate in the universal flow of good. Take a breath. I am a channel for abundant blessings in the world. Take a breath. The giving consciousness I cultivate contributes to the rising good of all humanity. Take a breath. Knowing God is my source, I help create a world where everyone has enough. Take a breath on that one. And with that, let us move into a time in the stillness together. And as we begin to come back to the present moment, the body in the seat, the breath moving in and out of the body, let us share a few more affirmations. I affirm abundance for all beings. Breathe. Divine ideas inspire solutions that benefit the whole planet. Breathe. My abundance consciousness dissolves thoughts of fear and scarcity. Breathe. Divine substance flows freely through human systems, communities, and hearts. Breathe. My consciousness of abundance contributes to the collective movement toward justice, peace, and shared good. And one more, my friends. This one, I'll say it once and you can repeat it with me a couple times at home. God is my source and I am grateful. Say it with me. God is my source and I am grateful. One more time. God is my source and I am grateful. So I am, my friends, and so I see you, each and every one of you, being in your lives, knowing your infinite source and participating in the outer world joyfully and gratefully. So thanks so much for being here with us today. And I'm going to hand it over to our friend Andrea.
Oh, Reverend Cheryl, that was all wonderful. Thank you. Thanks for watching the weekly broadcast from Unity of Fredericksburg. Visit our website, uofva.org, to learn more about our mission of spiritual awakening and transformation and support our ministry with your financial donation. Thanks again for watching and see you next time.